were not just born to think. And I often joke that we are feeling human beings that think, not thinking beings that feel.
When Dr. Raj Basood was talking about depression and the signs and symptoms of depression, as a 15-year-old, I was like, I see this. This is actually in and amongst people that I see day to day.
We have to be ready to be more human now more than ever, I think.
Welcome to From Hero to Human, a real, raw, and authentic space where we discuss mental health and well-being for healthcare professionals and beyond. And here, you will not get a prescription. We offer choice. We offer variety of speakers, their expertise, their story, and their real human experience that can bring you perhaps the solution that you are looking for. And I have a favor to ask. When you find something that is working for you and you see a positive effect on your personal well-being, please share it with others. This is how we create a positive change in our ecosystem. So this month is an International Nurses Week in May, which we are going to celebrate the following week. We are also celebrating International Coaching Week. So all my favorite disciplines are celebrated this month. And we welcome Dr. Tina Mistry to our space to talk about hero narrative, to talk about what is it to be a human being that is feeling well, that is enjoying life, and at the same time, this human being is able to take care of others. So Dr. Tina Mistry is a mental health consultant working across GCC with expertise in strategy planning and with her mission in helping organizations and humans to thrive. She is small but mighty. Since moving to the region, she has become an avid lover of matcha and sunsets. And this is the synergy that Nina and myself are looking for when we are choosing our speakers. But very often I say everything happens for a reason. So you just came and crossed our path for a reason. So welcome, Tina, to this.
Very much. Thank you both very, very much.
Nina.
Yes. You know, when I came across Dr. Tina's bio on LinkedIn, my head went, that's the one.
I have that.
I need to talk to her. I need to get into her brain. I need to learn more from her and share it in this platform. And that's why, as Magdalena said, our experts come to us. It's like because of what we're trying to do, which is create a shift, a mind-blowing shift, I would say, in terms of mental health and wellness and well-being and human being. So our guests are experts from all around, and they have gone through different types of experiences that we want to learn more about. So Dr. Tina, tell us a bit about your experience and why are you here in this realm today?
Oh, wow. That's such a huge question. Okay, where do I start? Well, in 1983, no. I mean, anyway, in a nutshell, I think it's really hard to describe, isn't it? Because there's so many different pieces in our lives that shape the way we are today. But I think in a nutshell, again, I was thinking about this yesterday. What is my calling? And my calling has always been around helping humans thrive. I think that is my, your headliner, your big why, and that's always been the case. But what often happens is that we get presented with career paths or decisions or, kind of training or whatever, and that we become somewhat attracted to that. So I feel like I always had this desire and inclination to work within the healing, helping field. So when I was really, really little, like actually really little, I was probably about 5 or 6. And, when adults ask you, what are you going to be when you're older? And I was obsessed with nurse. Then my Indian parents, of course, no, not nurse, doctor. I was like, oh, doctor. Okay. And then I got somewhat brainwashed into this idea of a doctor. And, you sit with it, you grow with it and whatever. And then I went through a weird phase of wanting to be a fashion designer. My parents were not impressed at that point. They were like, no, please, no. But I think I was always drawn into helping professions. And then at the sort of age of around 15, I was watching television in the morning, and I was watching this thing called Open University Lectures that they do with back at home in the UK. And they had this speaker, and there was a psychiatrist. His name was Dr. Raj Prasad, and he was talking about depression. And I was sat there with my cereal bowl, just watching this guy talk about depression. And obviously he's talking from a clinical angle, a psychiatry angle. That was it.
Light bulb.
I still remember it to this day. I remember how I was sitting, what was happening. There were all these sort of images about synapses and neuroreceptors and the biology of depression. And I remember him speaking. It feels very, very vivid as a memory. And something awoke in me. Because back in the day, this was, we're talking early 90s, I think. Mental health, when we think about mental health, it was a conversation around people being very, very sick and poorly. Mm-hmm. People being locked up in hospitals, or people being, showing really odd behaviors. And that's what mental health was. And we don't talk about that because it doesn't happen to us. But when Dr. Raj Prasad was talking about depression and the signs and symptoms of depression, as a 15-year-old, I was like, I see this. This is actually in and amongst people that I see day to day. So that was the beginning of a very long journey into psychology and into mental health and into trying to understand human beings. Unfortunately for my mom, I was that child that asked why. My poor mom. Mom, I'm so sorry. I really am sorry. But I was, and I still am to this day. So for me, curiosity is part of who I am. And I will never stop asking questions, because asking more questions leads us to depth of inquiry, expands our thinking, and doesn't stop us from growth. So I would say that in a nutshell, what has led me to this point has been my natural curiosity, my desire to constantly learn and integrate and do bigger picture thinking. And that isn't just necessarily about just individual human beings. It's about teams, it's about organizations, it's about communities, it's about politics, it's about systems. It's the broad thing. And now I'm even thinking expansive thinking about spirituality as well, how this all intersects. So this is where I am.
Yeah, let's grab it. Let me inhale it, because you just said the magic word curiosity, which I've discovered in my coach training. And since I started deepening or mastering the curiosity, I've learned that it is not necessarily about the answers, it's about the questions that we ask. And in this platform, we bring empowerment. So there isn't a prescription for well-being. There isn't a solution for good mental health. We need to find something that is working for us. When we see the positive effect, we need to start practicing it more. And at the same time, we need to understand that at some point, this solution might not be as effective as it used to be a few years back. So what do you advise someone who is now living in the UAE, a country of abundance, information, technology, resources? And I know you are the specialist in the digital space. I really want you to tell us, because I'm really super curious and I really want to broaden my horizon more. How do you maintain a good level of well-being and at the same time leverage the abundance of the digital enhancements and AI?
Yeah, great question. And this is something that I think everybody is struggling with. I would say that digital technology has slowly crept into our lives. Okay. And, I was born in the 80s, so we had literally nothing. And now we are using technology left, right, and center. And we're embracing it, right? We want it to make our life easier. But what it's also doing, whilst it's making our lives somewhat easier, is it's taking away the essence of humanity. Because what it is doing is creating almost like blockages, or it is somewhat taking away our natural ability to either socialize and connect, look into each other's eyes, know how to read behaviors. It's taking away from our ability to conversate and use language, to kind of, again, ask questions, be curious. And the other part, which is actually really quite frightening, is our attention. Mm-hmm. And that's the bit that's really, really scary. I had a conversation recently with numbers of people who talk about, and there was a funny Instagram post I shared actually, about how you switch on Netflix thinking you can have a relaxing evening, and you'll sit there, switch Netflix on. Right, it's taken me about 5-10 minutes just to even pick what I want to watch. That's one cognitive challenge. Then the second challenge arises. I press play, I press start. 5 minutes go, 10 minutes go. Before you know it, I've picked up my phone and I'm doing scrolling. Mm-hmm. And I've lost attention and I've lost focus. And then you realize after 20, 30 minutes of trying to engage in this Netflix program, or other programs are available, other platforms are available, that you are no longer enjoying the depth of engaging something that can give you, in many ways, what movies and series do, is that level of escapism, that sort of fantasy, that imagination. We can't do that. We're struggling to do that. And similarly, I think about drawing parallels to this. When we're assessing somebody for depression or anxiety, one of the questions we ask is, have you been able to focus and attend to activities that would normally give you pleasure? And you would rate that on a scale, not at all to yes, every single day. Now I wonder how many of us are actually facing this challenge of our focus, our attention, our ability to engage in pleasurable activities, or once were pleasurable, because of the ease of access to something that is so seductively sat there in front of us. I think this is stripping away from all of the things that normally or traditionally would give us pleasure. I talk about this also when we have conversations, dinners, social events. How many of us put our phone on the table? How many of us pick to check? Because we are afraid that we might miss something, because the alerts and the notifications are coming so fast. But what we haven't caught up, and our brains haven't caught up to do, is notice the difference between what is an actual real emergency and what is actually not really. A notification, a little red dot, is not an emergency. So there's so many different pieces around this of how technology is wonderful and enabling, and I am an advocate for this, but also it's taking away a lot of our essence of being humans.
Wow. When you talk about that, I am going back to my son, who is 7 years old now, and I am hardly trying how to hold on to technology as long as I can, because that's the fear that I have, that he will not be able to flip from that. And as humans, we are not meant to be on all the time. But because technology is always there, we tend to forget that it's okay to pause, to relax, to connect spiritually, as you mentioned. And I think now more than ever, the spiritual element is coming in really strongly. personally, that's what is really helping me overcome my stress, is when I just sit there and connect to a higher being, no matter how or who or what. But that's where I find the peace and the rest and the calm and the alignment and the connection, and helps me innovate and create and be a better person. And this is not easy for everyone. It takes time, it takes energy. And because it has become habitual now, because technology is there, as you said, we just grab it and we start working on it. What can we do from a psychological perspective within our communities that we can promote maybe awareness of how this impacts your actual performance and your mental health and your well-being?
Yeah, starts with awareness. It's really about doing maybe something around an audit or just an assessment of, am I truly engaging with things in a positive, pleasurable way? Am I getting the fruitful productivity that I once did before the digital distraction? And once you start to notice, and this is where mindfulness and this, like this practice, right? It's so important to be self-aware. And I would say that this is one of the skills that, unfortunately, majority of us lack. We are all on autopilot. And I talk about this from a sort of whole body perspective, that we are functioning up here. We are not functioning with the full. So we have lost we've disconnected from our bodies. It's our way to survive and cope with the modern day pressures that we have. So when we are disconnected, we're in this constant cognitive thinking, analytical, always on state. But once we start to connect with our bodies, and I say the first phase is just tune into how your body is feeling, the somatic feeling, of our breath, of how our heart is beating, of any sensations in our body. And I don't mean this to sound woo-woo, because this isn't woo-woo stuff. This is actually about us being fully aligned internally. We talk about in organizations, we need to be aligned in our teams. And, this is full alignment of the self. And this is where the work begins. So once you then start to develop a language of how you are understanding yourself, then you can start to create the little changes and the little moments where, I'm noticing. I am feeling. This may be linked to this or what's happening externally. So it starts there.
This is such a powerful awareness. And we have talked about the mind-body-spirit alignment in these sessions many times, because majority of people have a preconception stress happens in the head. And even yesterday, during the nursing symposiums, I was clarifying this concept. Like, if you have an emotion, notice where does it sit in the body. Your chest is tight, maybe something in your belly. Just bring the awareness to the whole being. It's not only the head. When you get stuck in that head, the cognitive overload, and then it gets worse. Then when we spiral into the chronic stress, and it just goes on and on and on. And we start living the stress narrative. Doesn't matter whether life is stressful or not. Very often we create that narrative, we jump in, and we bring other people into that stress narrative. So thank you for highlighting, Christina, is mind, body, spirit. We are holistic human beings. We were not just born to think. And I often joke that we are feeling human beings that think, not thinking beings that feel.
Correct.
So thank you for bringing the science, because very often people need to understand the scientific background. Okay, what is the psychologist saying? We as nurses, we know the physiology of stress, how does it show up in the body and so on. But having another specialty coming to the conversation gives people more and more understanding. And I've realized through the coaching as well, coaching doesn't work if there is a real knowledge gap. So people really, when they understand, okay, this is the science about stress. Now I am in control and I have more tools to work on the stress situation.
Exactly. It's giving people a language.
Mm.
And again, once you start to tap into the language, the knowledge, the wisdom, if we want to call it that, you can't then unsee that. That becomes part of your vocabulary, part of how you see the world. And then that gives you the starting point of creating change designed for you. So this is the other bit that you were talking about before, which is, not everything is going to be a one size fits all for everyone, right? And one person can practice meditation, another person struggles. One person may need to do something which is more physical. Another person may need to do something that is more slow or whatever. So everybody's going to have their own ways of doing things. But personal inquiry, reflection, taking time to understand the self is not selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like we've become a society where we've got this sort of spectrum of people that are just so busy doing, and then there's people that are doing the introspection and inquiry, and there is this somewhat looking from the other side saying they're just navel gazers. What are they doing? They're just in the clouds. But the reality is that these people are doing work. But essentially, the other bit that I guess which is important to mention is once you start to do the inquiry and the reflection, it's a practice, isn't it? Like that's the hard bit, the behavioral change. That how do I go from taking and absorbing all this information and now actually practicing this? How does that look? And I would say that's the biggest challenge because modern society and the way in which our lives are designed right now, they're full of distractions. They're full of living life in a particular disconnected way. It's almost like these corporate organizations that constantly want us to buy something or engage in something. It's designed to take away from doing the work. If you think about the psychology of marketing, the psychology of marketing talks about what is know your customer's pain point, know their archetype, and know what you are trying to solve for them. Now, if these marketing companies know how to sell you something in order to give you that temporary relief of whatever pain you might be feeling in that time, then what does that leave for us?
Yeah.
Here, have that chocolate bar. Here, have that pill. Or here, have that carb, that's going to give you status. It's that piece that it's all cleverly, beautifully designed because they know our psyche. They know our weak points. They know what drives us or what motivates us. But also at the same time, we've got to know what our internal psyche needs, not what they suggested. That might be a surface state, but the internal bit might be quite different. So this is where the chase for the best car, the best house, the best, everything, they know this because they are tapping into something deep within us. And let's not forget, we're social animals. We want to be in that space where we are seen and valued and loved, because that's essentially tapping into our need to be part of a community or being seen. Otherwise, we'll be ostracized from the tribe.
Wow.
And then we'll be lonely and all of these things left behind. So existentially, we'll struggle as a result. But this is the pain point now. The pain point we have now is we are more lonely than ever before.
Yeah, digitally connected, but epidemic of loneliness is there.
I'm just listening to Dr. Tina and like, boom, 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 boom. Oh my God. And when you said that it's about the introspection, it's about the practices that we develop. It's about going deep and finding out what it is that we love. It reminds me of me really advocating for wellness and saying wellness is not a candy cane. It's not a woo-woo. It's really the choices that we make, the actions that we take. It's our self-responsibility to feel emotionally, physically, mentally, adapt and okay to go on with this life that we're going on to. And as human beings, we might be distracted by a lot of things that is going on. And you mentioned the loneliness epidemic that is, we see it right now amongst our friends, amongst the people that we love the most. And it's very important that we take actions from, I think, from us personally with the closest people around us, and then that be a ripple effect for other people around. And from here, I wanted to ask you from the organizational perspective, and I'm sure you've done a lot of work with working with different types of people and different types of organization, looking at the behavior of the humans and how they function. Tell us more about the experience of that and how we can give some of the solutions to our people about well-being and how they can really hold on to wellness as an important factor.
I would say that it starts with culture. Culture is the invisible experience that we have within, let's say, a country or an organization or a family. It's that feeling we get once we open the door, and it's like, oh, what a vibe, So it's really about trying to identify your vision, your mission, what are your objectives? What is your organization's role in determining to live and breathe this experience for not only the employees, but also the customers and the people you're constantly interacting with. So start with the culture. And the culture isn't necessarily a tick box activity saying we're doing this training or we've done this awareness day. That's part of it. And that's the kind of behavioral side of it. But the essence is about how you and I show up in a room, in a space. What do I stand for? What policies are we abiding by and advocating for and being held responsible for? It's about, I say it's the invisible, when you think about walking into somebody's house and you're greeted by a family, it's the small little behaviors that they might do. So, in Arab cultures, it's beautiful. I know there's certain rituals that you do, and it's the same thing. It's about what do we hold on to and value so much that is the essence of who we are. And when we show that consistently and teach people that this is the way of our people, rather than saying this is the way, but then we're not actually doing this is the way. This is a bit of a, conflict, a massive disconnect. And I think this is the challenge that organizations have because, when we're recruiting, we recruit based on skill. Have they got this experience? Have they done this training and this degree? Alas, they look like a great person, done. But what we're failing to do, which I think is the hard part, I would say, is to understand how we can engage the right person, and again, this is the danger that organizations might have, is that it's not necessarily about having clones of the same type of person. We need diversity because diverse thinking is actually really, really valuable and powerful for innovation and growth. But I think the challenge is, how do we assess for that? And I still feel like from a culture perspective, we're still in the early phases of really trying to really get down to the nitty-gritty of, if there was a way I could assess Magda for this kind of culture, how would we get that data from her? How would we know, from a non-biased way? I mean, I can vibe, I can feel your vibe, and I get that sense. And I think that's the other part as well. We tend to do that, don't we? Tend to become attracted and magnetized based on people's energy, which I think is helpful, but it's also very biased and self-report, and it's quite difficult to really know for sure. So we can go on vibes, but also I would say there's challenges around that because, again, we can become quite performative as well. And this is the bit that I find very exciting, is authenticity. Yeah. When we're interviewed or being interviewed, to what level are we being really authentic? And that's a challenge because we're essentially being assessed. But as time goes by, what we would hope for our organization to provide us with is a space of authenticity where we can show up. I wouldn't say our full selves because we have facets that we don't need to show people. None of y'all need to see me on a Friday night, with a bag of chips watching Netflix. That you don't need that at work. But I can talk about it and I can say that that's what I do. But at the same time, you want to know about what I value. So I value certain things. I value kindness, compassion, care. I value growth, innovation, being challenged. I value safety. I value teamwork. I value, there's certain things that I really value. So how are we now knowing what each individual contributes, and how do we then create teams or organizations that have a beautiful balance of these things? Because I might be, great at speaking and sharing innovation and, doing certain things. But then we also need people that can piece things together, that are data oriented and that can, make the whole jigsaw puzzle work. So there's a lot of, I would say, emphasis on hiring talent in a more thoughtful, conscious way that needs to be done. I feel like we're not quite there yet. Maybe our science hasn't quite caught up. Maybe our assessments aren't quite as kind of integrated within the whole person's psychology or whole person's self yet. We haven't quite got there. But I would say that we have to start to think about this and doing the work from the top. So from our board, our C-suite, what is it we stand for? Do that thinking. Because yes, we are here to do a job and we're here to deliver something, but it's how, and people are our greatest asset. We might have the best technology in the world, but ultimately it's the people that are running it, and I feel like that it's like oiling the machine, it's about taking care of those cogs and wheels. We talk about that, don't we? As employees, we are essentially parts of the machine, but we need to be taken care of too. And we need to be understood, and we need to know where we fit and we belong as part of this whole piece.
You've mentioned another favorite keyword of mine, consciousness. So there is a concept of conscious leadership. It's not about ticking the boxes. It's about showing up authentically, limiting the gossip, seeing the human in front and really tapping into the power of collective intelligence. So in systemic team coaching, this is what I do with organizations, tapping into the collective intelligence. So it's not the individual, it's not the team, it's what or how the individual outside that room is going to benefit to the transformation and change that is happening in that room. So yeah, being conscious and not following the old narrative. And in healthcare, being still very reactive. Yes, there are some good organizations showing proactivity, like the HMS yesterday, the symposium that we have attended, but still a lot of organizations are stuck in the tick box activity, in doing what we were doing for 10, 15 years. I don't want to trivialize it. I know the pace of progress is intense. People are overwhelmed, and I hear it from my nurses, from leaders that I work with. Is every single time I am overwhelmed. I don't think I have the right skills, and I don't think that the leader around me have the right skills to help me when I'm stressed, when I'm at capacity, when I don't know what to do. And where I'm going with this, and this is what we've discussed yesterday during our beautiful chat, is the human skills. So we have the digital transformation, we have the AI, but is a negative for me. Usually I use however, but we are not upgrading our human skills to deal with the reality that we have created.
Absolutely. It's making me, as you were talking, Magda, it's making me think, have we had our upgrade? You use the word upgrade. And it's that, isn't it? Version, whatever we're at, we need an update, a system update, a reboot or something. And I feel like that behavioral change is hard, as I said to you before. The desire to change is there. the desire to want to be better is there. But the actual work that needs to be placed in order to do that, it's a lot. It's energy consuming, isn't it? We talk about this. So when we're already energy depleted from our day-to-day jobs, who actually has the energy to do the work to really start to say, okay, well, how am I going to upskill as a nurse, as a doctor, as a healthcare professional, and level up my skills, as the world is calling them soft skills, but I would say they're more hard skills, human skills. I want to cancel soft because it's not soft. They're essential human skills. We talk about intelligence, right? And we're not talking enough about emotional human intelligence. Yeah, we could have everything IQ, but EQ. And the other one that I'm starting to get really interested in is CQ, cultural intelligence. Fantastic. All of these pieces are all about how we can elevate ourselves in a rich multicultural society that we are in currently. Because the world is global, it's getting smaller. We are constantly being faced with challenges around communication and cultural difference and nuance. And to be able to understand one another with that skills and that level of training and wisdom, AI won't be able to do that. Not yet anyway, guys. Not yet. I can see that it will catch up in some ways, but ultimately AI doesn't have the eyes, the nose, the skin, the bones, the body that ultimately is what makes us feel safe. Like I'm going back to my evolution psychology. We make each other feel safe. At the end of the day, when something bad happens, where do we run to? We do not run to our mobile phones. It says, save me. We run to people.
Exactly.
We run to the arms of people.
Exactly so. And as you said, the AI will never emulate empathy, will never emulate emotional intelligence, will never emulate the hard skills that you're talking about. And as we see it grow, we have to be ready to be more human now more than ever, I think. And one of the things I see in leadership, specifically in nursing leadership, is that when you value the people, when you see them for who they are, when you accept them for who they are, when you support them, they will be the best at where everything they have to do, whether it's performing at work or whether it's at home. They come feeling well and happy and ready to give, and it's surprising to me that how are you doing, and standing there and waiting for an answer from them so that you can actually engage and connect and talk about it. That simple how are you doing can begin with so much depth. They will open up in so many ways because they feel that someone right there is actually caring for them enough to listen to what they have to say and to probably help them shift from what they're feeling. It's not sometimes what we have to give. It's sometimes by just being there at that certain moment, creating that psychological space for them to actually think that, okay, I can do this. I need that little bit of support, a little bit of spell, but I can do this. Wow. It's fascinating, guys.
And it's small things, like you said, it doesn't take a lot. And I would say that, again, we've become a culture of analysis and thinking. We're very much into our cognitive computer selves, I guess. And because we are so heavily promoted or pushed to be doing as opposed to being, and that's the challenge we have within culture, right? Is that we have to show productivity. We have to show that we are delivering and kind of, achieving and progressing. But what we don't give ourselves the grace and time to do is to stop and breathe and just tune in to where are we right now. And some of us might not even realize we're stuck because we're on autopilot. The example I tend to use and share, because I'm sure all of us will relate to this, is when we ask people, how are you doing? How is work going? Yeah, busy. Busy is the word.
It's my favorite word.
That I sit and I think, you want to be busy? Like, okay, like, wow, all right. And look, I will put my hands up and say, yes, I do say busy at times as well. But this is the default. And if you don't say you're busy, then it's like, are you really working then? You know, are you really working? What are you doing? You know, it's like, you should be busy. So this is the piece that we are promoting within our own society as well.
Yeah.
You must be busy. You must be going out there, achieving and doing X, Y, Z. You know, I often get a lot of comments from people that say, "Oh, you're busy on LinkedIn." I'm like, I'm busy doing things that nourish me, which is talking, connecting, and I just want to share that with the world. And it's ultimately about, you know, if your busyness is giving you a sense of fulfillment, then fair play.
Yeah.
But if your busyness is devoiding your soul, what are you doing?
Giving you burnout?
What are you doing? People, let's wake up, you know. But again, organizations promote this. Organizations want their employees to become machines. Well, there's going to be AI and all this technology for that. Then what do you want humans for? And this is the part, the call to action. We've really got to level up here. We really need to level up.
Beautiful message. And again, another synergetic point. I do whole training sessions on the use of the word busy. I'm not going to share the anecdote again, but I found nurses in cycles of busy. When I ask for definition, they cannot tell me what is it. Dictionary definitions, silence. What's your definition? Silence. So this science is simple. If your brain doesn't understand what you are saying, that's a different take, then you're not going to find the solution. Can you start using a vocabulary that is kind to yourself? So you can start looking at solutions and move forward instead of getting stuck in that cycle of running around, doing more, being busy for the sake of being busy.
Exactly. Because that is performative. You know, we're so busy performing. And this is what actually creates that disconnection of our meaning, our sense of self, our worth. I think that many, you know, healthcare professionals probably will have moments where they stop and think, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, maybe at the point where
After a year.
you stop and you think, what is this really about? And sometimes that comes at the cost of our physical health, you know, and this is the bit that really pains me because, you know, having worked in healthcare for many, many years, the healers, the carers, they're the ones that are suffering as well. And when I was training to be a psychologist, I was working under a systemic psychotherapist, and we were talking about how to support organizations. And I read loads of papers and tried to understand what happens when a system is flawed and broken. And it starts from the top, you know, like I said, the C-suite, the boardroom, the people, the leaders. If they don't have a strong understanding of what health means, vitality means, that's only going to ripple down, then affect the people that are actually going out to deliver what is good health. And guess who suffers right at the end? It's your patient.
Yeah.
Because your patients will be at the receiving end of burnt out healthcare professionals that may snap, that may not deliver care, may not show compassion. Essentially, we're failing the people that we are trying to heal.
That resonates so deeply that it's making me emotional. I won't lie to you, because that's exactly what happened to me many years in my career. I burnt out, but I've decided that last year was the last time I burned out. And I've taken a conscious decision and an intentional way of living now. And I really want to recognize Magda as well as an influencer for this for me, because it was a lot of things that me and her did that created this awareness in me. And when you say healers are the ones who suffer, it cannot be more true than that. We suffer from compassion fatigue. And some of us, we hear they say, oh, this nurse is heartless. Oh, this doctor is heartless. Well, we didn't reach this because we wanted to, unfortunately. It's because, as you said, the system is so flawed, it pushes us to be the way we are. And we sometimes need more help than our actual patients in front of us, honestly.
Wow. What a discussion. I think at this point, the message should be slow down. You are doing fine. Just slow down. Notice what you feel. Ask yourself who you are. Are you in the right space? Are you in the environment that is nourishing you? Just pause for a while and notice that you are a human being and not a human doing. Dina, thank you so much. Your calmness, your energy. This session is very different. I can feel the energy flowing. Your calmness is making me more calm. I really love this human interaction, right? This is the kind of human that we want to have in our space.
And I just want to just extend your point there, that when we're in spaces with like-minded people that actually want to do the right thing, so doing that introspection, doing that self-reflection, that pause, slowing down, it's even better with others. Mic drop.
Exactly, mic drop.
Wow. If you are feeling calm now, just by watching this and sensing this energy, do subscribe that button, because there will be more coming into that space. And most importantly, do share your feedback, do share your comments, and share it with your friends, with family, and whoever else is there around you that might need this type of awareness. In the end, we are on this planet to create that positive ripple effect in our communities. Till next time.